Hi everybody and welcome. I'm Pancho from Rico, your man of the book and Colorado Watchman. Coming to you today with a little video about meditation. We're going to look at the different types of meditation. Really, it's an Eastern style meditation versus a Western type of meditation or biblical Christian meditation. And so my contention is that there are differences and there's two different kinds of meditation. You know what brought this to mind, what spurred on this video, was another YouTuber, Paul Romano's Pockets of the Future. And actually I've been fooling around with this and doing a little research here and there for months now, because in one of his videos months ago, and frequently, he mentions his heartfulness meditation. And what happened in one video, I noticed there seemed to be a lot of confusion amongst the Christians who were commenting on the video. So I thought I would address that. And then, coincidentally, synchronicitously, today, this morning, Pockets of the Future came out with a new video on meditation. So although this is not a direct response to today's video, it is rather coincidental that I had this PowerPoint with this slide of Paul Romano on it ready last night. And so imagine my surprise when he made a video about meditation and put it up and came out this morning. But anyway, so that's what's happened. And, you know, a lot of Christians watch his channel. He's very apocalyptic, not a believer. And he talks a lot about heartfulness meditation, which is kind of similar to Raja Yoga. And I think we'll see that as we go along. What we're going to do is, first I'm going to look at this Eastern style meditation. We're going to look at its roots, like when it came over into the West and sort of its history first. And then I'm just going to look briefly, it only takes a few seconds really, to see what the Bible says about meditation. It's very, pretty straightforward, biblical type meditation. And so, but let's look at this Eastern meditation first, this heartfulness type meditation. And you know, where did this stuff come from? When did it first make its way here into Western culture, really? And of course, back in the day, as I call it, back in the day, 60s and 70s, well, we have the Beatles. The Beatles were a big purveyor of Eastern style stuff. We started listening to Ravi Shankar's sitar, for example. There was the concert for Bangladesh. And of course, back then we had Moonies and Krishnas. I remember Krishnas approaching me at the airport, Stapleton Airport in Denver, on the day John Lennon died. That's where I was. I was traveling from Memphis to Denver. And, you know, so we've had the Bhagavad Gita around. What else? Transcendental meditation, ashrams, all that kind of stuff came on pretty strong in the 60s. And, of course, by now it's pretty much just mainstream. A lot of it you don't even think of as being Eastern anymore because it's so normal here in Western culture, here in the U.S. in particular. So, anyway, especially in the Western United States. So where did this stuff come from before the Beatles? I mean, you really hadn't heard of it. You know, if you'd have talked about a lot of this stuff in the 50s, it would have been considered occult because it was just so weird, that Eastern stuff, altars and things like that, and statues and everything, just would have been thought of really as kind of witchcraft and occult in the 50s and such. And so it was still around, but it was a lot more under the table. But where did it start? Really was back, the first person to bring it into Western culture really was Madame Blavatsky, H.P. Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky. And this is her second book from the 1880s. The first book, Isis, was from the 1870s, 1880s, The Secret Doctrine. And so the idea is this is information from the Tibetan ascended masters that she's bringing over to us. It's the secret knowledge that we need. And so she's really the one that started that whole idea. Now, her disciple, if you will. Oh, let's look at the word occult. And so, so all this stuff back in the 50s, 40s, especially in the 1890s, would have been considered occult. And so let's just take a look at the word occult. supernatural, mystical, or magical beliefs, practices, or phenomenon. And so, look at the list. Is black magic, witchcraft, sorcery, necromancy, wizardry, the black arts, Kabbalah, devilry, voodoo, hoodoo, witchery, mysticism. And so, the occult, really the word occult, I guess literally translated, if you will, would mean hidden. And so it's stuff that's kind of secret. The occult was under the table, and Helena Blavatsky was bringing this knowledge to you, the secret doctrine, if you will. Incidentally, just to skip ahead for a second, one of the secret doctrines is that Lucifer is God. Lucifer is the one God. That's one of the secret doctrines. So one of the things we're going to see today is that these ideas, these Eastern ideas, are not just sort of a little tweaking, you could Buddhism and Christianity are compatible or whatever. They're really diametrically opposed. They're really the opposite of Bible teaching. And so this idea that secret knowledge is how to achieve salvation is an occult teaching and antithetical to what the Bible teaches. Jesus is the way to salvation in Christianity, not occult knowledge. And Jesus' knowledge is just, it's free, it's open, it's not supposed to be hidden or secret or for a small group of people. It's for everybody. Okay, so naturally, H.P. Blavatsky put out a periodical, a magazine, and it was called Lucifer. What a surprise. So Lucifer magazine. Theosophical Monthly, Theosophy is the name of her religion, really. But it's really just, it's Luciferianism. And the idea is that it was just a big misunderstanding. It was a big mistake. Lucifer actually sacrificed himself to come down here to earth and help mankind. So he's now the hero of the story. You know what? I could write New Age theology very easily, because all you have to do is kind of go through the Bible and directly contradict every story or teaching in there, and then you have this Luciferian theology. And so one of the basis, the foundation of all this really Eastern mysticism ultimately has to do with the fact that the devil is the good guy, God's the bad guy, and Lucifer came down and he's the hero and the sacrificer. And so anyway, that's the name of her magazine, just to show you that this whole foundation of New Age and this Eastern thought brought over from Tibetan masters, in her case, has an antithetical to the Bible. Here's Alice Bailey, mother of the New Age movement. One of the things that's happened to me, inadvertently, I've developed this sort of library of occult books. Because what I do is I see stuff on the internet and I don't really believe it. And I don't really believe it. And so I go check it out and order the books or whatever. For example, here's, Bill Clinton. I wanted to see if he really was into voodoo. And so I got the book. Here's another example. Here's The Secret Teachings by Manly P. Hall. This is a very occult book. It even has the contract, that you can sign in blood to sell your soul. And then here I have some of this Alice Bailey stuff. Here is her old newsletter, and I have some of her books here. Quite a few of her books here, and it's some crazy stuff. It's some wild stuff. We have the Esoteric Astrology, The Soul and Its Mechanism, The Labors of Hercules. How about Discipleship in the New Age? I also have the Conspilation on Sex, and then I have the Letters on Occult Meditation. So back in the 20s, this style of Eastern meditation was very simply called occult meditation. Okay? And so we're going to look at that a little bit. I also have her newsletter from today, from the Lucis Trust, her foundation, which carries on and keeps a library of her work. There, the Triangles, it's called. Let's just take a quick look inside the letters on occult meditation, since that's what we're talking about. Here I got a couple of things marked. Okay, one of the things I'll note right off, one of the most interesting parts of the book actually is the glossary. And if you look in there, you can see all kinds of, the terminology is all very occult. And so, for example, one of the things I'll note in here is she claims that her occult meditation style is very related to Raja Yoga, the true system of developing psychic and spiritual powers and union with one's higher self, or the ego. It involves the exercise, regulation, and concentration of thought. That's Raja Yoga. And so she says in here that what she does is very similar to Raja Yoga. And one of the things we're going to see is that the whole philosophy, if you will, the theology of this New Age is this idea of ascending, becoming a god, becoming like a god. We are gods, all that, which is really, again, this is something that's not a small tweak to biblical Christianity. This is antithetical. This is 180 degrees diametrically opposed, really, to the teaching of the Bible. Okay, so here, as an example, she talks about meditation here. Hold the mind positive and the physical vehicle supple and responsive. Well, then let him visualize his three bodies. And, well, let's see, I don't want to read all of this. In so doing, let him deliberately realize that he is a son of God, returning to the Father, that he is a God himself, seeking to find God consciousness in which that he is a creator, seeking to create, that he is the lower aspect of the deity, seeking alignment with the higher, and so forth. And so this is really, you can kind of bundle together most of all this Eastern thought from which the New Age descends, and it's always about ascending, becoming a god. And of course that's something that is prolific through all kinds of religions. Mormonism, for example, is about becoming a god. Apotheosis is a word for that. Man becoming God. And so this is what Paul Romano mentioned at the end of his Ascension, at the end of his video this morning. And so that's just sort of the main theme. And again, I just wanted to look at the fact that it is Raja Yoga is what she compares this theosophy with. It's mind control. One of the things I did note in here, here's another one. Let's see what we got here. Oh, she talks about logos and comprehends, this is what an ascended master of wisdom comprehends, the inner working of the law of gravitation or attraction and repulsion. The law of attraction, that's the secret on Oprah, that governs all the functions of the second aspect logic. The secret. So again, these are the, coincidentally, these are exactly the things that in the Garden of Eden account, in the book of Genesis, that the Satan, the serpent, tempted Eve with. You can become as a god. So if you're a god, like say, that's part of some of this New Age. Here's some New Age by Pat Robertson, right? And so this is supposedly Christian, but it's the same thing. The author shares this vital secret and reveals how your life will be changed. Gnosticism, gnosis, knowledge is the answer. And so again, all these things kind of match up strangely. Do they not? Another thing about Alice Bailey. I'm just going to mention that I want to talk about really her connection to again, the occult. Remember how H.P. Blavatsky's magazine was called Lucifer? Well, Alice Bailey's publishing company in the 1920s, imagine this, is called what? Lucifer Publishing Company. And so later on be called, she changed the name to Lucis, a shortened version of Lucifer. Lucis Publishing, and then eventually the Lucis Trust came along, which is the foundation, which exists, to carry on, to keep her library of works and all that. And there's still, like I say, here's the ongoing newsletter called The Triangles from the Lucis Trust Foundation. And so that's current. But another thing about the Lucis Trust is, well, they're part of the UN, the United Nations. And so, again, I'm talking about how this stuff is a totally anti what the Bible teaches, really. And so, and in other words, it's totally anti what the Bible teaches. Anyway, so this is connected to the United Nations. And you can see in here the address is in United Nations Plaza. The Lucis Trust is the publishing company, the official publishing company for the United Nations. And ultimately, if you think about it, the whole concept of that global authority is exactly what the Bible predicts. And now we're talking about a global authority is not a good thing. It's not a happy thing, because imagine it being like China or something like that, where it's a very repressive global authority where freedoms are totally repressed, certainly freedom, and then there would be a singular economy, all related, and the same with the religion. And really, that's what H.P. Blavatsky postulated, was that ultimately all the major religions would come together into a synthesis religion, which would be the true religion, and ultimately the one world religion, of course. All that predicted in the Bible, of course, as a bad thing. That's stuff, the one world religion, that's a great idea if it's the true one, but if it's a false one, well, it's a bad one. And of course, it's enforced. It's an enforced religion. Again, this whole concept of the New Age is antithetical and ultimately Luciferian. They're always teaching that it was a mix-up. Lucifer's the good guy, really. Satan is the good guy. Okay? And so, again, you can see these. I've been using the word diametrically opposed. They point completely opposite directions. Become a god, ascend, or be a slave to Jesus. Slave to Jesus. A willing slave. It's not like that's forced on you. It's because of what Jesus has done, you give yourself over as a slave. That's what the Wookiee does in Star Wars. He gives himself, Chewbacca is a willing slave to Han Solo because Han Solo saved his life. In Robinson Crusoe, probably the first time that trope came around was Friday the native. Robinson Crusoe saved his life, and so he gave himself as a willing slave to Robinson Crusoe, so his man Friday. And then Gilligan's Island. Who can forget when Gilligan saved the native girl, and then she became his slave, and so he had to come up with a scheme for her to save his life, so he'd be off the hook with having a slave girl. So that is more the idea of the Bible as opposed to becoming a god. That's the whole opposite. And again, that's exactly what Satan tempts Eve with, the serpent tempts Eve with, the reptile, I think would be a better, more literal translation, tempts Eve with in the Genesis story. Okay, so a lot of these books, she talks about Christ and the Christ, and as I said in the glossary, I looked that up, and when they talk about the Christ, they're not talking about my Jesus Christ, the Bible Jesus. She's talking about, the Lord Maitreya. This is the Buddhist Christ that's going to come in the end times and bring peace and harmony to the world. Also, she says, Alice Bailey says that it's the same as the Mahdi Christ. So the Muslim Christ that's going to come back at the end of time and essentially tell all the Christians we were wrong all along. But again, when they talk about Christ, it's a bit of a deception there. They're sort of blending him in with these other Christs, the Lord Maitreya, for example, who are just not the same thing as Jesus. So don't be fooled when people use the term Christ. That does not necessarily mean the man from Nazareth Christ, okay? This is the Lord Maitreya, the Buddhist Jesus, the Buddhist Christ. And when it comes down to it, the description of, say, the Lord Maitreya compared to the description of Jesus, or what's happening in the Bible, well, these guys, the Mahdi and the Lord Maitreya, here in the Americas, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, they all perfectly fulfill the description of the Antichrist. More literally would be the pseudo-Christ, false Christ. And so they're false Christs that coincidentally are antithetical, that teach things that are completely antithetical to what Jesus, the Jesus Christ. We're coming to this is all related to the meditation, because this whole idea of this emptiness type meditation, well, here it's described by Dr. Wayne Dwyer as getting in the gap. Getting in the gap. And so that means the gap between thoughts. It's about emptying your mind. This is sort of the basis of that Eastern style meditation, right? More of an emptying of the mind. And so my point that I'm getting at is that is all related to this stuff. This is all the same stuff, basically, which is Luciferian. And then, again, you don't have to take my word for this. You can look for yourself right on the internet. Go to the Lucifer Trust website. And remember, this is located in the UN. Okay? The Lucis Trust, their address was inside the United Nations Plaza, and they are indeed part of the UN. They're an influential group inside the United Nations. Here is the esoteric meaning of Lucifer. And again, they explain that it was just a big mix-up, really. And that what happened was Lucifer is one of the solar angels, those advanced beings who Theosophy says descended, thus the fall, from Venus to our planet eons ago to bring the principle of mind to what was then animal man. In the theosophical perspective, the descent of these solar angels was not a fall into sin or disgrace, but rather an act of great sacrifice. Okay, so again, Lucifer's the good guy. You can look this up. Look, she's the founder of the arcane school. Again, this is all very creepy and occulty. It really is. And then this idea that, the Bible, of course, has it totally backwards. Totally backwards. Satan, the serpent, Lucifer, all that's kind of blended together. And that is the good guy. It was a big mistake. That's where the foundation of this emptiness and Eastern style meditation lies. And it's coming on forward. Anyway, okay. Here's the word esoteric. Esoteric, intended or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. Cryptic, abstract, arcane. Arcane, remember she had the arcane school. Well, that's the same as esoteric. It's a synonym. So it's, again, if you can get this secret knowledge, this gnosis, this Gnosticism, secret knowledge, that is the way to salvation. And you gain this to a great degree through meditation. Meditation, this emptying of yourself, and then you allow yourself to come into secret knowledge. Now, I had mentioned this before, but these books that are written by Alice Bailey and H.P. Blavatsky, well, they didn't actually write them. They channeled these books. These books were channeled. This book, compilation on sex, this was actually written by the Tibetan masker Jarwal Kul. who she channeled. He's one of the ascended masters. The same with the secret doctrines. They were channeled by H.P. Blavatsky. So again, this is part of that occult meditation. Can empty yourself out enough to channel an ascended master. How awesome is that? You know, like I said, I've got a whole bunch of different, all these are very similar, the style. This is the Swami Vivekananda teaches meditation. Here's the Yogananda. This is a kind of a well-known book. The Autobiography of a Yogi, Yogananda. I don't know if you can see that. The lighting's not too good tonight. Here's another channeled book. This one's supposedly Christian. What's her name? E.G. White, Ellen White, the founder, if you will, of the Seventh-day Advent, the prophetess of Seventh-day Adventism. And her book, The Great Controversy. This is one of her channeled books. There's a book, The Glorious Physician. It's gone, I guess stolen. A channeled book. So, you know, there's that's one aspect of this type of meditation, occult meditation, is that you can bring yourself to a level where you can channel Tibetan ascended masters, if you will. Speaking of the UN, and this is, you know, this Theosophy, if you will, this New Age religion is really the unofficial religion of the UN, if you will. And again, it's unofficial, but this is the UN meditation room. And so you could say it's totally occult looking. There's a giant black magnetite obelisk in the middle of it. And then there's this weird painting, this abstract painting that's supposed to put your mind into a meditative state. And that's a giant multi-ton magnet there. So you can see that there's clearly occult issues going on there. Here's an interesting book, The Cult of the All-Seeing Eye. There's a book about the United Nations meditation room. And really a lot in there about it and how occult it really is. And so again, that's the UN wants to link up with the future one world religion, if you will. They want to be the global authority and also the global, the seat of the global religion. Here's a quote from Steve Bancarz. He's a former New Ager, and here he says, "The New Age is just spiritual Satanism repackaged in the box of social morality, wrapped in wrapping paper of unity and social progress, and topped with a bow of love and tolerance." I thought that was quite accurate portrayal. And so it really is, it all does hearken back to this Luciferian New Age. Theosophy. If you don't believe me that there's an occult element to meditation, well, just check out meditation, witchcraft meditations. And so here's some various witches teaching. Again, it's the same style of meditation. You know, you might focus on your heart or a candle, but the object ultimately is to be an emptying of mind, to have no thoughts in your mind. Is that style, that Eastern style. And again, here's a bunch of Wiccans and witches teaching meditation. What a coincidence. In a nutshell, the second commandment says, you know, not to make any like statues or gods, not to make carved, mostly it's about carved gods, statues, and whatever you do, don't bow down to them and worship them. No other gods, only me. No carved gods of any size, shape. This is the Message version. And so don't bow down to them and don't serve them. Okay, so imagine if I decided I was going to, as accurately as possible, violate this commandment. What I'm saying is, if I wanted to, as precisely as possible, do exactly what this says not to do, what would I do? Well, I could go over to the next town, and go to yoga. And if you'll look at that, there she is, the yoga instructor, Barbara, bowing down before 3 different idols. And these are not just random, carved statues. These are Hindu gods. Here's the elephant one, I forgot his name. There's Kali behind her, the one with all the arms, is just with an altar is right behind her. And this one, that looks like an Egyptian one. I'm not sure who that is either. But anyway, you can see that again, this is doing exactly what the second commandment says not to do. 100%. Now, of course, you could say yoga's just stretching. Does this look like a gymnasium to you? Is this a stretching gym? Is that what that is? With carved idols there. And then there's a occult symbol there on the wall as well. Okay, so no. In the old days, you know what this place would have been called? A temple. This is an idol temple. And the yoga is bowing down. And of course, again, the main part of the yoga, of Raja Yoga, which just means king yoga, the main yoga, is meditation. So a huge part of this physical style yoga also is to, when you strike the poses, you empty your mind, you try and yoke up, maybe with these gods or with Brahman or whatever. But the idea, it's again, it's a mind emptying occult style of meditation combined with the stretching poses, right? Each pose is a tribute to a different Hindu god also. Can't remember the name of that elephant god. Here's a couple more versions of the goddess Kali. She's frequently standing on the man. So there's always an element of female superiority in goddess Kali depictions. And just look how sweet she is. There she is again, and of course she's drinking blood out of a head, out of a severed head, and standing on the man, like I said. But yeah, she's drinking blood out of a severed head, and she's got a necklace of severed heads. So, she's all about peace and love. So this is the goddess they're bowing down to in the yoga studio. Oh yeah, so the other statue possibly is Anubis, the Egyptian dog-headed god Anubis. And then, the one with the elephant, Ganesha. That's a Hindu god. This one's Egyptian. Here's another shot of an Anubis statue with somebody bowing down in front. Bowing down, huh? Nowadays, even Denise Austin is into the yoga. Look at that. She's got a yoga booty lift. I'm telling you, yoga has become so mainstream. I mean, in the 60s, it would have been weird. In the 50s, you might have, been arrested or something for doing something that weird. Now, you got Denise Austin. Look how good she still looks. That works, whatever she's doing. But anyway, yeah, so now she's using yoga, and of course you got to meditate in there. If you still do not believe me yet that this occult meditation, this Eastern meditation, is connected to Luciferianism, New Agers have freely drawn upon all manner of satanic material, adapting it to their own hypocritical purposes. But in truth, all New Age labeling is again trying to play the devil's game without using his infernal name. Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan, says that all New Age is just a trick. It's Satan. It's Satanism. It's Luciferianism. Again, back to that point that this stuff is not compatible with Christianity, biblical Christianity. It's 180 degrees diametrically opposed to it. Aleister Crowley, the most wicked man in the world, he was known as. Yoga. He's big on yoga. Teaches yoga. There's another Aleister Crowley book from his satanic temple, Ordo Templis Ordino. And he was known as the Beast. Yoga and Magic by Aleister Crowley. There he is. Doesn't he look like a great guy? Look, he's got like a satanic Bible there. Here's what he says about yoga. To train the mind to move with maximum speed and energy, with the utmost possible accuracy in the chosen direction, and with the minimum of disturbance or friction, that is magic. To stop the mind altogether, that is yoga. Again, mind emptying. Here we got Bruce Lee, remember him? Kato in the Green Hornet, back when I was a kid. Everybody loved, when you played Green Hornet as a child, everybody wanted to be Kato, because he was kicking and stuff. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Put water into a cup, becomes the cup. Put water into teapot, becomes the teapot. Water can flow or creep or drip or crash. Be water, my friend. Here's the Anandamurti Guruma. He says, we are told that if you are not occupied with the mind all the time, then you'll invite the devil. It is such a heightened misconception that people are going crazy just because of this. An empty mind is not the devil's home, but an empty mind is the home of the Buddha. Anandamurti Guruma. An empty mind. Well, who is the #1 purveyor of New Age? Oprah. Oprah Winfrey claims to be a Christian, so it's a trick thing, you know. But she has a whole spiritual network. She was down there with John of God, turned out to be a baby farm, down in South America. But here she is with Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra says Jesus is a state of mind, of course. But anyway, they have a whole meditation package and videos and marketing and books and their 21-day meditation experience. And of course, this is again Eastern style meditation. What does the Bible say? This is the short part. This is only take a couple minutes. Matthew 12:43 and 45. This is about having an empty mind, okay? This is what happens if you empty your mind. When an unclean spirit comes out of a man, it passeth through arid places seeking rest, and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. On its return, it finds the house swept clean and put in order. Then it goes and brings 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and dwell there. And the final plight of that man is worse than the first. So at first he had one spirit, one evil spirit in him, one demon, and he got rid of that. He eradicated that and emptied his mind. And so that spirit went out and got 7 other guys, saw that the mind was empty, and came back with 7 other guys. Here we go. A lot of this is about just really love of the Word of God. You know, and that just happens when the Holy Spirit comes in you. I don't force myself to read the Bible or study the Bible. I love the Bible. I have a hunger for it. It's the greatest book. You know, I've read maybe 10,000 books. You know, I read every kind of book, science fiction and just detective fiction or whatever, mainstream fiction, and thousands of science magazines and journals and everything. So it's been tens of thousands of books and magazines I've read. But really, it was all in preparation for me to finally read and be able to really comprehend the main book, the book from which all those others really descend. Keep this book of law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. All right, prosperous and successful. Sounds like Joel Osteen. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. And so really, that's kind of what I do. I mean, that's the main thing I do. It's my favorite thing. I'm always researching something that is somehow related. It may be about Romans or geology or astronomy or yoga or whatever. But it's all in the context of being able to better understand the Bible itself. I learned about shepherds this last fall. Fascinating. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellence, and if anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. So you're supposed to, this whole idea of Christian meditation is you're supposed to fill your mind with good stuff. Just the opposite of what the Buddha, that guru, said earlier. You know, this is keep your mind, you know, the way to get bad thoughts and stinking thinking out of your mind is to flush it out with good thoughts and start thinking about how you can serve, how you can fulfill the Great Commission, your ministry, a Bible verse. You know, it's easy to get fascinated just with, you know, look at one verse and you can start researching that and find, you know, it's an amazing thing. Clearly a supernatural document. Psalm 77:12. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Boom, thinking about God. It's the God type of meditation where you are basically thinking about God. That's what it says right there. How awesome God is. You know, this whole other thing, this ascension thing, man becoming God, you know, that's amazing really. A man could become a God. That's an amazing thing. But this is about God becoming a man. Now that is amazing. Colossians 2. I want you woven into a tapestry of love, in touch with everything there is to know of God. Then you will have minds confident and at rest, focused on Christ, God's great mystery. All the richest treasures of wisdom and knowledge are embedded in that mystery and nowhere else. And we've been shown the mystery. I'm telling you this because I don't want anyone leading you off on some wild goose chase after other so-called mysteries or the secret. This is from the Message Bible, Eugene Peterson's paraphrase, and he actually uses, in quotes, capitalized, the secret. And so again, that's just 100% antithetical. This is what the Bible's saying not to follow. And the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So your minds are to be guarded against evil possession, demonic oppression, whatever. You know, your bad thinking. And so this is the heart of Christian meditation, is to fill your mind, and all day if possible, with thoughts of God and serving God, loving God, how awesome God is, what else I can do to fulfill my mission out of gratitude, not so I can get into heaven. You know, I'm at the point of my 110% know the truth of Jesus. Therefore, what I do, and you know, Jesus says He knows those who love Him by those who follow His commands. So He's not saying the way you get into heaven is to follow my commands. He's saying if you love me, you'll want to follow Him. Naturally, if we love someone, we want to do their wishes. This stuff is just getting everywhere. Here's William Henry from Ancient Aliens and totally teaching the Luciferian doctrine. I heard Van Daniken and that other guy talking about, well, you know, maybe it was all a big mix-up. Lucifer was an alien that came down to earth and taught mankind knowledge, and so Lucifer's the savior. And look, this is his book, Aphageia. He's advertising it. Discover the Lost Science of Ascension. So once again, we've got lost knowledge he's going to give us, and that's going to make us able to ascend and become a god. Remember, as I said, I think it's amazing God became a man. That is awesome. You know, like I said, it's getting everywhere. Here is Star Trek, right? This is the Star Trek Discovery. Now, do you remember when Star Trek was like boldly go where no man goes before? It's not that anymore. It's totally not that. Now, it's the space holds a secret that you can only learn if you have a heart open enough. If you have such an open heart to hear the secret in space. And so, wow, what the heck are they talking about? And it keeps having a lot of Luciferian image. Now, we're talking about Star Trek has like demonic images. Here's young Spock, and he's created a hologram, and of all things, a giant flying, writhing serpent. Quetzalcoatl, of course, the god of the Americas, the demon, the flying serpent of the Americas in Star Trek. Look at this image. He's having like a vision there, and one of the characters, and look who it is. That is Lucifer, look. Plain as day. And so there's a mysterious character who's appearing now, and he's known as the Red Angel. I was able to watch the first episode of season 2, for free on the internet. It's out there. Here's another image from Star Trek of the Red Angel. So this is obviously Lucifer. What do you want to bet? That the Red Angel turns out to be a hero. It's a mysterious character now that makes weird appearances. But I think down the road, it's going to turn out that the Red Angel was the one that, he saved the universe or something. He's going to be the total good guy. Guarantee you. Coming up with that. So this stuff is just everywhere. It's in Star Trek now. It's ridiculous. So be careful. Be careful out there and watch out for this. Anything that just seems occulty, just stay away from it. And so, if you haven't given your life to Jesus yet, you might want to consider doing it pretty quick. Time's running out. Oh, and then here's an image of Jesus meditating in the garden. Catch you next time, Colorado Watchman.